Good morning, Internet. I'm going to try another one of these videos today and see if I can improve a little bit on the last one. Try and do that every day. Um, First thing I want to talk about today is actually Dead Space and Dead Space 2, the video game series. Um, I picked them both up because I hadn't played them when they came out for many years, and I had heard about them and kind of dismissed them, but I kept seeing them in lists of top games and things like that. So I finally got them, and I played through the first one, and I'm just starting to play through the second one. And I have to say I was pleasantly surprised by the first Dead Space in certain ways, and kind of disappointed in other ways. On the plus side, it had some very unique feeling mechanics. The zero gravity areas, or the zero gravity areas where you use your magnetic boots. I thought that was a long overdue game mechanic. I think I've only ever seen that before, maybe in one of the Serious Sam games, where the engine allowed variable gravity. But I mean, come on, it's 2013. We don't have games with zero gravity environments, really, that are executed well, or variable gravity. Anyway, that was one good element. It definitely works as a kind of a thriller survival horror, because it does get the heart rate up, and it does so more than just freaking you out, having monsters jump out at you. I don't know, it's just rather unsettling. As a shooter, though, it's fairly straightforward. Run through pretty linear corridors to get to shoot more bad guys, basically, and move on to the next level. The plot, I thought, had a few interesting elements, but overall was very blasé, generic, uninteresting. I think my favorite thing about the whole game came at the very end, though. Spoiler alert if anybody hasn't played it, or if anybody cares. When what's his name? Jacob, right? When he finally takes off his helmet. And I think this might just be in my own head, just limitation of the graphics, but he looks like, maybe a 50-year-old guy, which I thought was really cool. So you have this engineer. He's not a soldier or anything. He's an engineer, a mechanic, basically. And then at the end of the game, it's also revealed that he's kind of this older, middle-aged guy, and not some young pistol-slinging space soldier. Maybe it was just the graphical limitations made him look like he was old, because when I booted up the second game, I was really excited to see more of that theme come through, this non-combat soldier character go through the game. But then, and also they did not have any voice acting for the main character in the first game. They do in the second game, which, and they make him look like a like a 25-year-old, athlete. So that really jarred me out of enjoying the beginning of the second one, and I really don't know if I'm going to get into it much. But that's kind of a few thoughts that I had about that, since I was going through those recently. I also wanted to talk quickly about one of the creative projects that I'm working on, and since I started out talking about video game design and some of the things I liked and didn't like, maybe I'd talk about one of my concepts for a game. Similar to what Dead Space tried to do, I have a concept for a shooter that actually doesn't involve any shooting. One of the unfortunate things about video games today, I think, is that they are, by and large, not all, but a good majority of them, I think, are they're very violent. So the core mechanic is doing violence against something, and that seems, you know, that's been the history of video games from very early. I mean, we've created shooters. I mean, even Mario Brothers is doing violence to the enemy. And regardless of how graphic any of those are, the core mechanic is still violence. And so I was wondering if you could do a shooter-style game, a first-person adventure game, maybe, where the main character is, like they tried in Dead Space, an engineer. But don't say he's an engineer and then turn him into a ad hoc soldier. But have him or her solve puzzles using sort of engineering techniques, science, deductive reasoning, things like that. And could you make a compelling game like that? Now, a game that I thought was kind of similar to that concept in that the core mechanic is not violence was Amnesia. And I watched Day9 Sean Plott play through Amnesia, which is hysterical to begin with anyway. But that game has your character is never given a weapon. Your character can never do violence to anybody in the game, or really anything. In that sense, it's very kind of realistic in that you can only manipulate the world as you would expect a real person to be able to, for the most part. And that game, at least from watching it played, I haven't played it myself, looked like it really worked. It was compelling. It was story driven. It substituted some other mechanics for the run and gun mechanic, particularly this fear meter. And the more freaked out you get by seeing weird stuff or being in the dark too long, you essentially degenerate, and the world starts to warp, and you see things and you hear things, and so that's kind of their mechanic. And I was thinking of taking that more to a kind of a technical side and see if you could write a non-combat first-person adventure game where the main character is not an action hero, but sort of like kind of an average guy who has a technical job. And see if you can write compelling mechanics and write compelling puzzles for that character to solve. So those are some of the ideas that have been kind of going around in my head about that project. And I think it can work. I just need to spend, I think, some more time actually putting things down on paper, writing out possibilities, trying to get some of these mechanics put together. If it stays in my head, it'll just stay there forever and kind of die. So, and I guess that's an interesting segue into a third thing I wanted to talk about, just something personal about me that I've thought about, some insight that I've had, and in this case, workflow is an interesting topic. I was born in 1982, so I've grown up with computers and the internet, and that is kind of my native mode of looking for information, of absorbing information, is digital. But I recently, over the last couple of years, started to realize that it's a very efficient way of doing certain tasks, finding certain information, but working on information and recording information as a part of a workflow, I think it really is lacking. In particular, say for example, if I'm writing some short stories and I write a few notes and I put it in a blog, say, and leave it unpublished so I can go back and edit it later. the reality is that I would never go back and look for it, or if it's buried in, you know, a bunch of subfolders in a text file somewhere. The reality is I just don't see it. I don't go back to it. It's not present in my mind anymore. I've recorded it, I put it on my mind, and it's gone. But I find keeping a notebook, a physical notebook, paper and pencil or pen, you can easily just pick that up off the pile and just flip through it and find, you know, exactly what you want to find. And you can record ideas in here. You can do calculations. You can make drawings, and it's just so easy compared to the computer. Now, yeah, it's not really maybe the ideal archival form. It's not searchable, things like that. But for me, moving back to the physical, away from the digital, has made a really big difference in how productive I am. It's just so much more intuitive. It's so much more human. I mean, humans are used to manipulating physical objects. I mean, we're physical creatures. We have hands and eyes, and manipulating the digital world is okay, but it's not really our native language, I guess. So that's something that I've kind of learned. I can maybe talk about that more later. But it's helped me a lot, and it seems counterintuitive, but I think it's a cool insight. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it there for today. We're at about 12 minutes. So everybody have a good day, and I will see you. I'm not sure when I'll be on vacation next week, but I'll start recording again the week after that. I think I can do probably 3 or 4 videos a week. So anyway, see you guys later.